You're listening to 17 Carat K-Pop, the podcast that's a little bit of everything with a K-pop twist. From pop culture critiques to the history of K-pop to interviews with people in the K-pop industry and K-pop artists themselves, to concert and album reviews, to a deep dive into the discographies of different K-pop artists, to K-pop news updates, to stories about the music industry more broadly. This show tries to cover everything about K-pop and K-pop as it applies to the larger music and concert scenes. Visit 17caratkpop.weebly.com for more information about the show. That's 17caratkpop.weebly.com. Hello everybody and welcome back to 17 Carat K-Pop. On today's episode of 17 Talk, 2 more 17 docuseries episodes that we're going to be diving into, recapping, and just reflecting on and talking about how 17 are a great influence in my life, and your life too probably. Just time for Carats to fan out over 17 and talk about their impact. But first, just a quick few 17 headlines I want to address from the past week or so. Congrats to 17 for winning Album of the Year for the third quarter in terms of album sales of 2020 at the Gown Chart Awards, the 10th Gown Chart Awards for Hengare. Also, congrats to them. They are the new cover stars for Bizarre V magazine, the digital issue that you can now access through the Bizarre V app. Congrats to them for being on The Kelly Clarkson Show. And they also have some bonus video content on YouTube now that you've got to check out from their time. They also now have posted the last of Going 17 for now. So Going 17 will be on a hiatus, the show, until March 3rd. Make sure you check out the episode of Aven Girls, where Seungkwan was a guest star. That is out now. Lastly, keep in mind that the Superstar Pledis mobile game is shutting down officially, starting February 26th. So enjoy it while it lasts. Now let's get to talking about Wonwoo and SQ's episodes of Hit the Road. Episode 2 is all about Wonwoo, and it's called Speed Isn't All That Matters. It starts out with their performance in the Yokohama Arena, and then they go to Makuhari. They finish up the Japanese leg of their OTU World Tour, and then head on to the next. They just finished a fourth of the tour, so now they're heading on to the second out of 4 legs of the tour that were planned at the time. It starts out with a great reminder of how much of a bop the B-side rock is. Honestly, it was one of my top 5 most played Spotify songs for 2020, and it came out years ago, but it is just so good. And the live performance actually was a great reminder, and that's probably why after seeing them live at the beginning of last year, I ended up realizing how good the song was and then spent the whole year listening to it again. So of course it was one of my most played. Anyway, definitely a B-side that I'm glad got a lot of love on this tour. Another highlight from their OTU World Tour setlist was Trauma, the rock version they performed live, and that also takes center stage in this episode, just thematically as well as just literally that performance is shown. And that's another one that if 17 releases an OTU live album, which I would absolutely go nuts over, and they really should do that, that should definitely be on there because the live rock version is just next level. Wonwoo got to show a shyer side of himself than usual, it seems. His off-camera side shines in this episode, talking about how he is more of an introvert than people may think. He likes a lot of homebody hobbies and being by himself and enjoys his alone time. I realize that we have a lot in common through this episode because of that. This episode starts out pretty casually, and it's just kind of an unfiltered look at their life on tour in a hotel room in Japan. Some of the members spend their one day off relaxing at the hotel, while others go to the Super Junior concert. What's interesting about this episode to watch is not so much actual drama, but the actual the sociology of it all, just to observe their interactions really, and how they are inspired by their seniors in the industry, Super Junior, and want to be like them. June comments about how they wish they could get better at speaking Japanese so they could all introduce themselves at their own concerts in Japanese. They also just talk in general about wanting to live up to Super Junior's status in terms of how popular they are worldwide and how beloved worldwide they are. It's also telling how excited they were talking about how they would spend their one day off on this tour, which is just a reminder that as much fun as a tour announcement is for fans, for the artist sometimes, of course, that comes with its own emotional baggage to deal with. This episode also highlights some of the actual physical pains that come with the job, reminding you that it truly can take a toll on artists' bodies when they go on tour. Some of the members have to have their feet or backs taped up, muscles taped up, and then Dino ends up not being able to perform that night because he has this small intestine inflammation and went to the ER. So definitely it was a rough patch, to say the least, on their tour. What's even more concerning is that Wanwoo ended up hyperventilating during the show, and he wasn't feeling well from the very beginning of the show, the first song, and he just felt so much extra urgency to get back up there, though, because Dino was already gone. And so his place was already missing. The members had already been scrambling, trying to figure out how to reconfigure the setup and the set list and the choreography and all of that for him. And so to make up for a second absence would be an extra headache for the other members, so he didn't want to let them down and wanted to go back up on stage. Again, part of the episode that is really interesting to think about, not just for this specific case, but just more broadly, thinking about how humans are wired like that. Like, we really don't want to inconvenience other people, but that often is at the expense of us taking care of ourselves. And Wanwoo did go back on stage, which was probably against doctor's orders, but he did. He voiced how he couldn't let it show because Dino was already missing, how much he was in pain. The whole episode does end also on that same note where Hoshi is teasing his episode, and you see Hoshi giving himself a pep talk in the mirror about put on a happy face, it's your job, to get out there and be a good influence on other people. So the episode really looks from a unique angle at just the mental health of artists and how the ways they need to address that are often unaddressed because it's just all for the sake of fans, and they feel like they're supposed to just bottle things up because fans want to see them happy and they don't want to worry about them, so tell them they're fine and there's nothing to worry about, but then that can take an internal toll on them. This all got me thinking about how BTS went on that break that made news actually, not even just in the K-pop space, but in just like CNN and stuff, reported on the fact that this big band was finally taking a break for the first time since 2013, and they got like a week off, maybe a month, I think it was only a week. But anyway, they got a very short amount of time off. This was August of 2019 that they finally took their first break since 2013 as artists, and they were back at it very quickly after that. It was just very noteworthy, which it shouldn't be. It should be actually quite common, I would argue, to let artists take a break, but that's not usually the case, so that's just something to remember as well. Having said all of this, if you're a long-time listener, you know what I'm going to say next. I'm going to remind you all that these issues with the industry when it comes to physically straining artists and having grueling tour schedules and mental health toll, all of those aspects of this life they have, are not exclusive to the K-pop industry. I always want to condition when I talk about this stuff that way because it's all K-pop often does, especially in the Western media, get broadly painted as, oh, the dark industry, this dark side of K-pop is huge, a big issue. If you looked at any other music industry, this is a problem worldwide in every music industry. It's just focused on and is turned suddenly into the central story element when talking about K-pop, because I guess that's just like the juicy gossip story they want, trying to find a new way to get more people to read their content, So if I'm trying to pitch a story about K-pop to someone who doesn't listen to it, they might be like, why would someone who doesn't speak Korean be into your article and that music, which is very close-minded, and I could go on for hours ranting against that opinion, but anyway, I'm more likely to get my story pitch to be approved if I position it as, well, here it's about scandal, it's about the dark side of the industry, So at some level, marketing-wise, I get why they have to do that or feel like they have to draw attention, but trust me, people, you do not need to get eyeballs on a K-pop themed story, at least anymore, luckily. So just go out there and you can write about, Jungkook plays with a pet bunny or something, I don't know, but anything that, it doesn't need to be dramatic at all, and trust me, you'll get lots of retweets and shares and all of that, so don't try to make this the full story. Talk about it, sure, but along with other stuff, let's balance out this coverage, please, especially for outlets who focus on the dark stuff when it happens and nothing else. Like, why are you writing about K-pop now after like an artist got hospitalized or something, but you never write about them when good things happen? So I'm glad they showed this part of touring life. It is important for fans to remember that touring is not all sunshine and rainbows, but at the same time I do want to keep in mind that this is not an issue solely with the K-pop industry. Last detail I want to note from this episode, there's this really cute, wholesome moment when Wonwoo talks about the other members and how they're like family to him, and you truly see that with the dynamics among 17 members. I think about this all the time because I'm a sociologist, but also because I just find it so fascinating thinking about being around 12 other people in a band all the time. Because it's like you're part of a whole classroom of your peers all the time. They seem like they genuinely like it and they're not getting on each other's nerves and they're just they are like a family with each other, very comfortable around each other. And that was what Wonwoo was talking about and how he is quite an introvert, but it really helps bring out a bolder side of him to be around the other members. They help his best traits shine, and that's a great way to look at it. And he talks about how they take care of him and always say Wonwoo too, which is a cute way to just say, let's make sure we hear him out. And that's what they seem to do in a lot of interviews and stuff. Everyone gets the chance to speak and have their voices literally heard and gets a say in what they're doing. And I mean, that's the format of this whole docuseries. Each one gets their own episode about their view on their OTU tour. So they each get a chance to shine, which is so important if you're in a group with so many members, especially, again, if we're talking about mental health. You've got to have a feeling of autonomy, otherwise it will definitely take its toll on you to feel like you're just in the background or just going through the motions. They definitely act like not a single one of them is replaceable. And that's what happened when SQ went on that hiatus. They kept holding a picture of him up in their group pictures when he wasn't there to indicate he was still there and his absence was felt. Which is a great moment to transition to talking about SQ's episode, which was episode 3. Episode 3 is called On an Unfamiliar Path. This is the one that actually ends the Japanese leg of the tour, and then they go to Jakarta. SQ also had some issues with injuries and had to have his feet taped up, but his comment about that was interesting, about how he was most disappointed when his feet were in pain during the encore, because that's when they all run back out there and start jumping up and down a lot with fans, and he wanted to jump up and down with everyone, but it hurts more to jump than to just dance around a little, and so that was hard for him. But it's really interesting, again, just sociologically, to think about what that does to artists when they have those injuries, because it actually isn't just a bummer for them because it hurts, but a bummer emotionally. That's like a fuel for them to get back on stage and to just be in that moment, in that glow of being around fans and just having a dance party in the time of your life. That carefreeness when that aspect of the show is not available to you, that must be really tough. But it also then can make you feel more triumphant when you get over that. And the episode does feature that as well. They have this big celebration dinner. SQ commented on being the leader of 17. He actually prefers not to think of himself that way. He prefers to view himself as like a younger brother to the other members. The thought that they take care of him. And that actually seems to be a common refrain from different K-pop artists when asked about how they view their role as the designated leader of the group. A lot of them prefer not to be. A lot of that, it's not really a coveted role. I think about this all the time because of NCT and my bias Taeyeon being in charge. I'm always wondering how he does it, being in charge of 22 and counting other people all the time. So naturally that does feel like pressure, and so that makes sense why it seems like leaders of groups like Taeyeon is as well are really in touch with their inner child still, and still have that side of them that's just playful and goofy, because they probably need that. They need to feel taken care of because they're always doing the caretaking, if that makes sense. SQ opened up a lot for the first time on camera about the fact that he stepped away from the OTU tour due to severe anxiety. During one show, he just could not get back on stage. He had to leave the stage, and then they had to change up the set list and change the order of performances to give him more time off stage to figure out what he wanted to do. He did push himself to go back on stage that night, but he couldn't finish the tour, and so that's when they started holding up the picture of him at the group photo at the end of the night and things like that. And he really opened up and was vulnerable in this episode about the self-loathing that comes with feeling like you let everyone down and feeling like just ultimately fear, and he feared he'd never feel like he had the courage to get back up on stage again. I can't even imagine. That's like if you trained your whole life for the Olympics and you suddenly felt terrified of entering the swimming pool or whatever. fear, the layers of fear that can bring you, feeling like your life's goals are right there and you can't grab them because of your own mental roadblocks. He felt so just personally conflicted and ashamed. But I'm so glad he talked about this, because as we've talked about again and again on this show, mental health is not talked about enough anywhere, but especially in Korea. It's really not. It's kind of a taboo subject, and what used to be the common refrain when an artist took a break from the spotlight was personal reasons, medical leave, or they're leaving for, usually they say personal reasons. But now it's actually throughout the past 2-ish years, it seems like more and more and more, when it's anxiety or some other mental health issue that causes them to take a break from the spotlight. I'm just so grateful that they're doing that, because for me, I would say personally the announcement that affected me the most was probably with Monsta X's Juhani opening up about his anxiety, because I know he likes that beast mode rapper persona he has on stage, and so for him to admit that he's not okay, I appreciated. And I remember when I first heard that news, I was thinking about my own severe anxiety issues, and I was just thinking about, well, if this means so much to me, being someone who is luckily able to get the help I need, imagine how it feels to hear your idol say that when you can't get that help. At least someone is out there acknowledging your struggle, you know? So I'm just so glad they're doing that for the sake of other people that live in more taboo cultures and parts of the world. So I really hope that's making a big change in the industry, and I think it is. And it's happening not just from those smaller companies, but from bigger names like Twice's Mina. I mean, she's obviously such an icon, as is Twice, so for her to be open was a big pivotal moment. Now, the normalization of taking medication for mental health reasons, that due to differences in drug laws and perceptions in Asia overall, and drugs also referring to prescription medication even, that's a whole conversation for another day. That's a separate conversation, but that's going to take longer to erase stigma around, but progress, right? I hope more forums open up in the future for artists, especially leaders of these K-pop groups, to share these feelings out in the open. I like how the show Miss Back has been doing that, really. These former girl group members coming together and sharing their struggles from their idol years or group member years, not necessarily just their only years as an idol, but anyway. And I just love when they are opening up about that stuff, and I hope they continue to do so. There are some key quotes from Wonwoo's and SQ's episodes of the docuseries that I want to highlight. From Wonwoo, quote, "You know, for others, our trainee years are equal to I'm preparing for a test or looking for a job. People always tell us that our songs really help them go through those years. Everyone in the world has something tough going for them, and I feel often that I want to be their comfort during those years." And he goes on to talk about how those formative years of your life, music can be such a great source of solace and a coping mechanism for those really stressful years. I 100% agree with that. The words on the screen at the end of his episode talk about basically stopping to take a minute and just pressing pause in your life, and how that can really help you hold on to memories more and soak in that moment, which actually is what I did at the very end of 17's concert, just soaking it up, thinking about how this moment won't last forever, and I still now carry that moment with me. From SQ's episode, the words on the screen at the end of it were, "Anyone can lose their way. All you need is the courage to walk the unfamiliar and daunting path again. Pick back up, and when you fall, pick yourself up and get back to it." SQ's episode got me thinking of his role in the 24-hour music video, the one called 24 Hours, when his character was trapped in that TV or that box of sorts, and how he was, at the end of the video, like falling to the floor. Just, it seemed like he really was able to have his character's direction in their story change in that video, and just act out and be a symbol of his actual emotional states. I also started thinking about during both of these episodes about the song My, which is one of their songs all about going your own pace in life, and how you can just find a new way to grow. Falling Flowers is a song about that as well, about taking, the wilted flowers and finding a new way to water them, or insert some other cute metaphor here about growing from the ashes or whatever, and just making the most of each moment, and when there are moments that you're not succeeding in, just don't worry because there's a new moment coming, and you can learn from this moment to carry that lesson into the next moment. Those are some of the lessons both that 17 directly talked about in these episodes, and the ones that in general from their music and the docuseries and everything else, and their interviews, all of that have really helped me on my life journey, frankly, and so very grateful to them and their impact on the world, and those quotes are one of the many examples as to why I feel that way. I'm going to keep talking about the lessons I've learned and other musings about their docuseries in 17 Talk, talking about episode 4 up next, but that is it for today. Thank you all for listening. Lots of a variety of different themes and content to address on the show next week, so stay tuned. Also, a new How to Stand Out Sunday. Thank you all for listening. Talk to you all soon.